Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and I'm here with my mid-November book wrap-up. I wasn't going to do one of these and then last week I sort of read a lot of books. So now I'm up to 13 books already in November. It is only the 20th. No, it's not even the 20th. I think it's the 19th. Jeez. Anyway, the month's running away from me, but I thought I would film this mid-month wrap-up so that it doesn't end up being a ginormously long video at the end of the month. So let's get started. First up this month I read Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is book 2 and 3 in the Grisha Trilogy. I did finish the first book at the end of last month and I basically marathoned all 3 books in about 4 days. Do I feel guilty? No. I really love this series. I gave all of the books 4 out of 5 stars. I couldn't give them more than 4 out of 5 stars. There were just some things that really bothered me a little bit in it, but I did really love them. I will definitely be rereading them at some point. I have tabbed my books. Favourite quotes. I will confess most of these are Nikolai's quotes because he's damn funny. I won't go too much into them because they are books 2 and 3. Basically, we follow Alina as after she has discovered and started to learn how to use her powers from the first book, and she is continuing on her journey. She is trying to escape the Darkling and his plans and so on. One thing I will say, interestingly enough, I really love the Darkling as a villain character. He's quite interesting, and what I found really strange in Ruin and Rising is I don't think I felt like he was in it very much, which he was still a good villain despite not being in it very much, but he wasn't really in it. So that was really interesting, and that's probably one of the reasons why I couldn't give it a high rating, because to me that was just odd. But yes, plus the ending, I didn't really agree with the ending, but I understood it, and that's fine. Vague enough, I have no idea. Next up, I read a book of poems, and this is Julia Donaldson's compilation of poems to perform, so she curated this list. It is a children's poetry book. We are doing poems for the last couple of weeks of the year at my school. I thought this would be really fun to actually read through. I've had this book for about 2 years, and I've never read it, and so I read it. It only took me 2 days to read, and I sort of just read it about half of it one night and half of it the next night, and it's just full of poems. Some of them are Julia Donaldson's own poems, others are by famous poets. It has one of my favourite poems of all time in there, In a Dark Dark Wood, in it, and I've discovered some ones that I really love, and I can't wait to take this into school and to share it with my 5 and 6-year-old students because I think they're going to love it. There's some kids who really love to perform poetry and to read in front of groups of people. Julia Donaldson chose these poems specifically for performance, so they're either really good for single performers or there's group poems in here as well, which is great. Very happy with this one. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I DNF'd a book. I DNF'd Moonchosen by PC Cast. I was really excited about this. I remember really liking PC Cast's books, and I really didn't like this one. It was a struggle to even... I had it as an e-arc from NetGalley, and I was trying to read it. I tried. I really tried. And I don't know, the writing style, the characters, to be honest, the characters at the start of the book just seemed insipid, and I just couldn't be bothered reading about them. I had no actual interest in finding out what was going to happen. So I DNF'd it because ain't nobody got time for that. Next up this month, I read Threader by Rebecca Turner, which is a book I picked up ages ago. Okay, by ages ago, I mean like 6 months ago. I had no idea what it was about. I'm so glad that I went into it not knowing what it was about because I really loved this book. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think it's the best written book out there, but it was definitely one that really caught my attention. I read it in one sitting. It's been blurbed by Maria V. Snyder, and up the top it says, "The story threaded its way into my heart and wouldn't let go. Be prepared for a late night," and damn was she right. The only way I can describe this book is like X-Men meets Inception meets crazy high school young adult antics. I love the X-Men and I love Inception and I love all that weird stuff, and this was just awesome. So let's see if I can summarize this. So Josie Ryder is an orphan. She lives with her uncle and she has abilities, and there are lots of people in the world who have abilities and people who don't. People with abilities can choose to be registered, and if they're registered, they can actually earn points towards citizenship. So basically this is sort of a dystopian where people aren't really registered as citizens unless they can perform some measure of duty to the world. So she lives, I believe in this, she's living in Australia with her uncle, and one day she finds herself at the Helios Academy, which is a place for people with abilities, and they train them, and it's run by a corporation who then takes these people that they've trained and puts them to work. And the whole point being that they're part of this beautiful glittering society where everything's perfect, as opposed to where she's come from, where she's basically living in like a slum area, and it's her experiences at the Helios Academy. I love it. There is a bit of a love triangle in it. But to be honest, it was sort of one-sided and it was nothing, so I was quite happy with the way that it ended. I believe it is the first book in a series, but I don't know. I really liked it. The next book that I read this month was Armageddon Out of Here, which is the book of skullduggery pleasant short stories. This was funny to read. I loved it. So this was the second last book in this collection that I had to read to finish off the Skullduggery Pleasant series. I'm so glad I read these short stories. It was just nice seeing these little moments that take place throughout the series. So it probably would have made more sense for me to read it as I was rereading the series, but I didn't think of that. So I just read them all in one hit, and I did really, really enjoy them. It was nice to see some side characters appear more in these books. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's pretty much like the rest of the series. So if you're a fan of the series, read the short stories. It just gives you a little bit more of an insight into the world. And following on from Armageddon Out of Here, I read The Maleficent Seven, which is the Tanith Lowe story. I want to say short story, but it's really novel length anyway. I am going to talk a little bit about this book, so I'm going to say right now, there are spoilers if you haven't read the Skullduggery Pleasant series, so if you don't want to know, just wait till I put the book down. So just press mute and fast forward until I put the book down. So it's a story of Tanith Lowe after she is possessed by a remnant or taken over by a remnant, and the adventures that she has going after the god weapons. So she puts together sort of a motley crew to help her collect these weapons so that they can't be used to destroy Darkess. Am I saying that right? Probably not. I can't pronounce anyone's names in books right. Then they also go up against another group of people, and these are the Good Sorcerers, and they're led by Dexter Vex, who is one of Skullduggery Pleasant's allies. And man, I enjoyed this. This was quite fun to read because of all the extra characters that were thrown into it. I forget where it takes place in the series because it is, I wasn't paying attention, so this is a bit like the other extra novellas, but I really enjoyed it. And Tanith Lowe is a great character, and I felt really sorry for her when she got possessed by the Remnant, and really, to be perfectly honest, she was just as kick-ass with the Remnant as she was without it. Okay, next up I read Ruined by Jazzacado, which is a new adult book. It is an ebook that I read. I think I got it off Amazon, and it is sort of a Cain and Abel, I want to say retelling, sort of, more like a continuation. So it takes the legend of Cain and Abel. Basically, Cain's descendants are cursed and possessed by demons. And in this world, demons actually are all on the human plane. They've been banished out of hell for infighting and being a nuisance. So yes, let's just send all the demons out of hell and into Earth. Sounds like a great plan. So it is the first book in the Eternal Balance series, and it follows Jax, who is a descendant of Cain and possessed by a demon, and he has a twin brother, and basically the demon inside of him wants to kill his brother and has always, as per the Cain and Abel myth. Basically, Jax ran away from his family to protect them, and he comes back when his uncle is dying from terminal cancer. And along the way, we meet his ex-girlfriend, Samantha. Yes, shenanigans ensue involving demons, witches, all sorts of things. So really fun, new adult, paranormal sort of romance. There were some really steamy bits in it. This is definitely not young adult. I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. Good fun read. Okay, next I read Off Base by Annabeth Albert, and it is an arc that I received from NetGalley, and it is a new adult romance book, and it is about Zach Nelson, who is a Navy SEAL who is very much in the closet, and he finds himself with a new roommate, Pike, who is very charming and adorable, and I love Pike. He's just awesome. And it's about how Zach sort of finds his way to accepting who he is. And I'll be perfectly honest, Zach irritated the crap out of me in this book. I get it. I can't relate to Zach's situation, so I'm not going to comment on that. But as a character, just didn't connect with him. Pike, on the other hand, was really, really interesting, and he was such a sweet guy, and I loved reading his parts. So it is told from 2 character perspectives. Make that of what you will. 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a fun read. Very steamy bits in it too. This was the month for it, apparently. Next up, I read First Life by Gina Showalter, which is the first Gina Showalter book that I've read. I really love the cover on this. I wish the book was as good as the cover, because I spent the entire time wondering what the hell was going on and why no one was making decisions. So basically in this book, you've got Ten Lockwood, who is basically in this asylum, and she's been sent there because she can't make a decision about which realm she would like to be in after she dies. So in this universe, you have a first life, and then after your first death, you choose between 2 realms. So there's Troika and Myriad, and She can't decide, so her parents lock her up in an asylum. It sounds really intriguing. I mean, having multiple lives to do stuff in, I think that's really cool. But ultimately, this entire book is her making a decision. No offense, 400 pages to make one decision. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really connect with any of the characters. I sort of persisted with it because I had a sneaking suspicion I knew what she would choose at the end, and I was right. I am curious about what happens next, but I don't think it was the best written book, or the most well-written book I've ever read. To be honest, I think some of the descriptions at the start really confused me. I kept getting confused about who was from which realm and what was going on. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I did keep reading it, and I mean, it wasn't terrible. It's probably sort of more a 2.5. And you know me, I don't like saying bad things about books. I didn't DNF it, so there was something in it that was holding my interest, but I think it's more just the premise that's holding it up than anything else. Also, just a word of warning, there are a lot of trigger warnings in here. The stuff that she goes through in the asylum is mostly horrific, to be perfectly honest, so just be wary of that if you do read it. I have also just finished Collide by Amy Jessica Russ, which came in my Dragonsword box last month, and this is a young adult science fiction novel, and it is interesting. So basically, a girl wakes up on a strange planet with no idea of who she is, where she is, how she got there, or anything about her life. She retains memories of how to do things, and she remembers aspects of her culture, but she doesn't know anything else, like nothing personal. And she finds herself welcomed into a community of the race that lives on this planet. They call them Exodians. She starts to fall in love with one of them, even while she's trying to earn her place and to help other people not to be wary and afraid of her. What can I say about this book? It was an interesting read. The writing style is very different to what I'm used to. There's a lot of dialogue, which actually doesn't bother me. I like dialogue. Yeah, the writing style was interesting. I don't think it's the best written book I've ever read. And there were like the first half of the book I sort of had to push through to read it. The last 100 pages or so is really fast paced because a few things happen and the tone of the story changes and the stakes are raised, and the pace picks up. So that was a lot easier to get through the last part of the book. Whereas the first part, it is really character driven. It is really about this community and the way that this community works as a family. So there's a really great world built up in this book with family values and whatnot. But yeah, it's an interesting one. At the moment, I'm sort of sitting on about a 3 out of 5 stars for this book. It's definitely the first book in a series, so there's something coming up after this, and man, I didn't expect the ending. So I am curious to see where the story goes. I'm feeling really conflicted this month. The last 2 books that I read were actually class reads that I read with my class, and I'm including them here because, well, I can. So I finally finished the BFG with my class, and I loved it. It's the first time I've ever read the BFG. Most of the kids in my class have actually read it, and they were really excited to read it and share it with their friends who hadn't read it. So we had a lot of fun talking about it, and I had kids going, oh, this is the next chapter, and one of them telling me that I hadn't finished reading the book when I thought I had. This is the benefit of teaching 5 and 6-year-olds. If you don't know the story, the BFG is The Big Friendly Giant. It is written by Roald Dahl. It includes his fantastic, wonderful use of language and the way that he plays with words. I mean, the BFG is just such a wonderful character. He's just so uplifting and enthusiastic, and the other giants are creepy and terrifying, and Sophie is just such a gorgeous little character who has her own view of the world and her own perspective, and she tries to share that with the BFG and tries to help him and tries to fix a problem that in a way that only a child would think of, and that's amazing. And the kids really, really enjoyed it. It did take us the better part of about a month and a half to read it because we could only read about half a chapter when we got a chance to read it during the day because, yeah, sitting for long periods of time listening to a book with not that many pictures in it, it was a bit of a challenge, but I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I love Roald Dahl. And then we also read one of Roald Dahl's short stories, The Enormous Crocodile, which I also gave 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was hilarious. It's the first time I read that one as well. I read it with the kids, and we were giggling at the antics of the enormous crocodile, the reaction of the children in the story, and also the reaction of my kids in the class. So I really love that one as well. So those are the 13 books that I've read so far this month. I am currently in the middle of Black Rock White City by A.S. Patrick. I've still got World After on my TBR. I've still got Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven on my TBR. I've also picked up a couple of things this month which may go on there as well. But yes, that's everything that I've read so far. It's so much easier when I do this mid-month wrap-up because I'm not trying to hold up 20 books. Plus I don't have the ebooks in here, so that's easier. So yes, this month's sort of been mixed. for reviews. Like I said, I've DNF'd one book and I've got a few that sort of I have really conflicting ideas on, but for the most part, I'm enjoying this reading month and I can't wait to see what I read in the next couple of weeks. So don't forget to let me know in the comments, what are you currently reading? And if you've read any of the books that I have read, what are your thoughts on them? I would love to know. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. See you later.